Let's be brutally honest right now. That's a big question.
I'm looking for someone who doesn't want to go to base camp, but they want to go to the very top.
Whether it's here, India, New York.
Civilization was born at happy hour.
That's what wins. That's what stands out. That's what people are interested in. That's what I want to know. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson.
Hello and welcome to the Hospopreneurs Podcast. My guest today, Ben Branson, founded the world's first and best-selling distilled non-alcoholic spirit, Seedlip. Since completing the sale of the business to Diageo in 2019, Ben has maintained an interest in the growing non-alc industry, recently launching Pollen Projects, an independent venture studio. Their founding project has just gone live, SEASN, that's SEASN, a non-alcoholic cocktail bitters. Ben is also the founder of Neurodivergence charity PRISM ND and hosts their podcast, The Hidden 20%. Hello and welcome to the show, Ben.
Hey, James. Great to be here. Well, not here, but I'm here. You're there. But yeah, thanks for having me.
You're here on the show with me? Yeah, of course. We've done many episodes across the globe many times. So this isn't the first, absolutely. But I know it's the early morning for you, but you've had an earlier morning. You've got a couple of young kids. That means you've been up for a little while already. But lining up this episode, I wanted to reach out to you when I used to work with Diageo a while ago now. But obviously your brand is in the portfolio over here, and I'd been meaning to get in touch. So I'm glad that we're able to sit down and chat today. So thank you for joining me on the program.
Hey, welcome.
Ben, as you know, the first question that I like to ask on the program is a crazy hospitality story or exceptional hospitality experience. I'd love to know what you have for the show today.
So Seedlip launched end of 2015, me in my kitchen, one-man band doing everything. By kind of 2018, we were in 30 countries. It was wild, but I was really excited to be launching in Shanghai. And so I did a lot of traveling, and a typical trip was kind of, London to Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Hong Kong over to Taiwan to Singapore probably down to Sydney or Auckland, up to Melbourne. And then I was going to Shanghai. We were doing a launch event in Shanghai, which was really exciting. I'd heard a lot about the kind of food and drink scene and certainly the kind of cocktail scene in Shanghai. I was really excited and landed fairly bleary-eyed. And fortunately, our distributor had organized a taxi to the airport for me. So I got my bags, got through, looked for my kind of name on the board, and I met the taxi driver, all good, got to his car, all good. And then he asked me to sit in the front. And I was kind of like, okay, that's cool. No problem. I sit in the front. We both got in. And then he started taking his clothes off.
Oh, the taxi driver.
The taxi driver. And I was kind of like...
That's strange.
I was like, whoa. Hey, I don't know what's going on. Anyway, it was the most amazing prank. He was a bartender in Shanghai. He knew we were coming down. He wanted to surprise me. He was a big fan of Seedlip, and such a big fan of Seedlip that he'd had one of our illustrations tattooed in pretty large, 10-inch size on his arm. And so wanted to, I was totally blown away.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
It was a pretty surreal experience. I got the Seedlip logo tattoo. I got tattoos of all my brands and my businesses on my body, but not to this scale, and I haven't got anybody else's brand tattooed on my body. So,
wow.
Yeah, it was amazing and the beginning of an amazing trip.
Is it a matter of if the tattoo's bigger, you're a bigger fan? Does that mean that he's a bigger fan than you are, Ben?
I don't know. I think it's certainly a level of commitment to kind of take a large section of real estate on your body and dedicate it to, someone else's artwork. Yeah, I'd go for that one, James.
Wow. And who did your artwork? I'm guessing they must be very pleased that it's now on someone else's body around the world.
Yeah. So I don't know, the education system in England, I got to 11 and, I enjoyed art and I enjoyed being creative, but then art kind of fell away. I was sort of discouraged away from it, or it was, I was more into my sport and sort of more traditional academia. And then I realized when I got to kind of 25 and I just picked up a pencil and I started drawing insects, actually. I started kind of sketching ants and bees. And it was actually for a bee tattoo on my arm. But I realized I could draw really well. And this was like, wow, I kind of didn't even know I had this in me. So that was a really cool revelation. And then, Seedlip sort of all kicked off a few years later. And I just started sketching and trying to find a way to bring together my love of flora and fauna. And I try and find a way to kind of celebrate our ingredients and bring them together in a sophisticated, kind of grown up and attractive way that, really heroed them on the bottle and stood proud on the back bar. And so, I started sketching, I had some ideas, and then we worked with our design agency to kind of take that to a computer and properly kind of get stuck into the detail of it. And so we work with Pearl Fisher, they're the design agency, and still work with them on all of my projects. So on SEASN, I'm sure we'll talk about our new startup, and on my charity as well. So they're great. They're wonderful illustrations. People always comment on them. It's usually the word love, which is wonderful. Yeah, they're a great mascot, I think, for Seedlip.
Yeah, let's broaden it. So just to take a step back and kind of approach it from a slightly different perspective without getting too granular into the brand yet, I'd like to know why you do what you do. This is a question I like to ask on almost every episode. I'm trying to understand what it is that really inspires you. So what makes you keep working towards what it is that you're working towards?
I am driven by an incredible urge around two things, I think, James. One is a fear of failure. And I guess what I mean by that is rather than in pursuit of success and achievement, reward and gain, I'm kept on my toes by taking risks in a calculated way, trying things, wanting to change things, wanting to disrupt things, wanting to poke and prod and kind of try and, in my own little way, move the world on. And that carries with it a real risk of failure, right? And that carries with it real sort of trepidation and walking a fine line that it might all crumble and people might not like it and it might all go away, or it might run out of money, or might get delisted, or etc. And so, that fear of failure is a big driver.
It sounds like you're actually not necessarily afraid of failing, though. So something I've thought about a bit recently is the act of deciding to move in spite of that fear, which is really courageous. So is it the courage to act in the face of fear is what drives you? That's what it actually sounds like to me.
I have to create things. This is the second part, that I have to create and I have to make and I have to express myself, and expressing myself based on my values and what's important to me. And nature is a big one of those, and art and design and liquids and drinks and photography and video and all that kind of, that whole world. I am compelled to create things, and it's the process, not the outcome or the destination, that I need. I need to create. I need to have an outlet for my ideas or my values and the way that I see the world. And I think a lot about, this isn't going to work, or this is a rubbish idea, or no one's going to like it. I hated the first 6 months of Seedlip. I wanted to close the business every day. I didn't, and my actions didn't say that. And so there's a big difference that I'm learning between what the message is and what I'm thinking and what my head tells me versus how I act. And so acting and doing the right thing for the business, for example. And it was the same with SEASN. Coming up to launch, we had liquids in bottles. I created these 2 beautiful liquids that I'm really proud of. Stunning brand, amazing kind of commercial opportunity, great strategy, all the learnings from Seedlip. Got an amazing network now, fortunately. But I still was thinking, I don't even want to launch this. I'm just happy I've made it. I don't want to launch it. I don't think that's ever going to go away, but I did launch it. I took the right actions to put it out there. And there's a push-pull and an interesting conflict that I wrestle with on needing to create, but being sort of terrified of what might happen.
So there's something in there that you made me think of. And I mean, I identify as a creative person, and you sound like an incredibly creative person. And there must be people watching this or listening to this who are thinking, oh, I'm an incredibly creative type. Or people who are like, oh, I wish I could be more creative and do those things that Ben's talking about. Do you think that creative people are inherently driven to wanting to find various outlets for that creation or for that creativity? Or do you think that it's something that people just kind of stumble into? Or because you quite clearly have a number of different outlets for your creativity. And I wonder what really drives that.
Yeah, I'm kind of, you distill this down for want of a better phrase, and I want to make things better. And that's better for my family's life, and that's better for society. And that's, my brain is built for efficiency and optimization. And I was diagnosed autistic, James, in 2022. And that has been revelatory in many ways. It's been a challenge and a wrestle to get my head around and understand and learn more. And ultimately it's led to us creating a charity and launching this amazing podcast and kind of campaign. But I've learned, or I've recognized, that I just want to make things simpler or faster or improve things. And certainly in the world of non-alc, it's just, I want people to drink better drinks, not because I want them to drink non-alcoholic drinks, but I want them to have better choice. And I want them to have more choice and better options so that they feel, included and feel like they belong and feel like they've got an exciting array of things to choose from, regardless of the alcohol content. Yes, a lot of this is about a creative outlet for my ideas and my brain. And that's probably more in tune with also being ADHD, of kind of the impulsive, reactionary, emotive kind of urgency with which I want to make things and create things. Being autistic means I want to do it incredibly methodically, and I want to do it with analysis and really clear strategic rigor. And I want to understand and create the blueprint and get into the absolute minutiae of everything that I'm doing. Yeah, there's sort of a left brain, right brain tussle there. I'm only really just at the beginning of learning how to channel that and how to harness that, I think, which is both new and different, but really exciting. But I do feel, to your point on, do people kind of stumble into it? I didn't set out to create a drinks brand. I didn't set out to invent non-alcoholic spirits. I've fallen into each business by way of making and creating and experimenting, rather than deciding to create a business, if that makes sense.
Have you always been that way? You've been an experimenter, a tinkerer, if you will. It sounds like that's the sort of person that you are.
Yeah, I collect things. I'm a great lover of history. I like to understand, break things down and build them back up. I'm from a farming family, so I grew up in the countryside. And as a kid, I wanted to make booby traps, and I wanted to make tree houses and dens and bows and arrows and catapults and build a football goal. And I was a maker in that sense. And I guess I've sort of taken some of that forward then in distilling in my kitchen, back in sort of 2013. And now we're building this sort of laboratory where I'm sat, which we're right at the beginning of, where again I've got into another process, another drinks making production process that has not been done in non-alc. And we're building a small production unit here for our second project. So yeah, it's in me.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, about the work that you're doing. You have done and then are doing now, because it is connected in the non-alc space. And I just want to ask you for your description of a high level on what it is that you've done, because for those out there listening, coming into this episode, it might be the first time they've listened to the show, or maybe it's their 50th episode. Maybe they've listened to all of them, which it'll be probably 170 something, 180 something. Like, people would be hard pressed to not have heard of Seedlip. And so I'm interested in your high-level take on what it is that Seedlip is, and now the work that you're doing in this lab. You described it as a laboratory. So I'd love to know more about the work that you're doing now.
Yeah. So 10 years, 2013, James, was when I first started playing around in my kitchen with a little 2-liter copper pot still and some mint that I'd grown in my garden. And so I feel like I've been in non-alc, I guess, for coming up 11 years. Back in 2013, which is not that long ago, the options were really poor, right? Maybe there was one non-alc beer, maybe, and maybe there was some sort of grape juice in a wine bottle, but there was nothing on menus. No one was talking about non-alc. There was nothing, no ecosystem, no podcasts, no influencers, no books, no events, no awards, no festivals, nothing within the cultural fabric other than the fact that people were drinking great cocktails and the cocktail scene was really accelerating. And people had suddenly this amazing access to information through social media. We suddenly had lots of information to go out from a health wellness perspective, and that movement was all kind of boiling away. So there was sort of the latent demand or the latent need, I guess, which was unconscious at the time of, hey, look, I really like drinks, but I don't always want to drink alcohol, and I want to get up and I want to exercise and I want to get on and be productive. And so I just want to have some great drinks, not necessarily with alcohol. Anyway, so that was back then. And Seedlip launched. It was the world's first distilled non-alcoholic spirit. And we were on our own. We were the only non-alcoholic spirit in the world till about 2018. So for like the first 3 years, it was just us. And we launched in 30 countries. We took it to all these amazing Michelin star restaurants, 5-star hotels, the best cocktail bars in the world. And it was this incredible learning experience and this incredible journey of introducing something totally new and disruptive and different. My goal was about influence and impact. And we wanted to, I guess, light a fire and start the conversation and aim at kind of changing perspective and changing the narrative. And we did that really very simplistically by focusing and targeting people who drink alcohol, which sounds bizarre for a non-alc product, but I'm a very big believer in the way that you make real change on a bigger societal level is not at the grassroots, not at the counterculture level, not at the sort of uprising, find your mini tribe and go against the majority. It's by changing the majority's mindset. And the majority of people in the world do drink alcohol. And so we very much focused on the majority. Fast forward 2019, I sold the majority of Seedlip to Diageo. So I'm still a shareholder now and I'm still involved, but it is Diageo's brand and Diageo's business now. And that, takes us and the category into a whole nother level of credibility, opportunity.
And volume too.
Volume.
I mean, that business can drive so much more business, right?
Yeah. And look, they're a huge global business with incredibly powerful brands in their portfolio. And so that is how part of my strategy on the very lofty, most of the time delusional idea that I had of wanting to change the way the world drinks. And so I'm still involved there, but I'm right back at the beginning because I have more ideas. And so I started working on making cocktail bitters back in 2017 and playing around because I wanted to create different ingredients that could be used in Seedlip cocktails. I wanted to understand what things tasted like when you extracted them in different ways. I wanted to indulge my very bad, dangerous habit of finding weird and wonderful herbs and ingredients and spices and seeing what they taste like and poring over botanical history and the history books to kind of just indulge my palate, I guess, on what does stuff taste like? We've got 47,000 edible plants in the world, James, and I guarantee that most of us, maybe only try less than 500 in our lifetime. And that to me, as someone who absolutely adores nature, feels really sad because what an amazing array of diversity to expose your palate to that could be incredible. I started working on those bitters and I'm really only properly in the last 2 years started to actually develop two liquids and really understand the cocktail bitters category. And I'm sure lots of people will have heard of Angostura. They've been going 200 years, but they got a 92% share of the category. And cocktail bitters are these amazing pocket rocket kind of concentrated liquids that transform drinks, and they make drinks, and they finish drinks, and they balance them, and they are like the salt and pepper for drinks. They're really easy to use. And so SEASN is our new brand, our new project that I've set up independently, not connected to Diageo or Seedlip, but is the first of a series of projects that we are commercializing that I've been working on for a long time, that brings me, full loop to the laboratory that we're creating that's on the site of a monastery, a Benedictine monastery from the 1100s. So, yeah.
That's very cool. I'll have to see some photos of the site.
Yeah.
Are these bitters non-alc or are they not necessarily?
So they are 0.0 and they're vegan and they've got a brilliant shelf life and they are very unique flavor profile wise. So there's a light one that's just mega green and zesty and bright and salty and really moorish and bitter. And that's, very simply, that's for your lighter drinks. So whether that's your gin and tonic or your soda or your martini or your margarita. And then there's a SEASN dark, which is more in that aromatic camp. So it's kind of, you've got clove and smoked cherry wood and black pepper and mushroom and chili and very different. And that's for your kind of darker drinks. So that's ginger ale or old fashions, Manhattans, whiskey highballs. Because we didn't need these to contain alcohol. But I want people to season all their drinks, right? And that's from your old fashioned and your martini through to your kind of just your soda and transforming that. So yeah, they are 0.0 and they are vegan. They're kind of pieces of product information, if that makes sense. They're claims.
I've seen something recently about bitters and soda becoming a bit more of a thing. Is that something that you're playing into or hoping to play into? Or it's a very fledgling thing that I've sort of seen recently, but I don't know if you're more on the pulse of that specifically being in the space. But is that something you've picked up on as well?
It definitely is. And James, we're bringing SEASN to Australia the beginning of next year. We're coming for lemon lime bitters, right? That's a serve that, has got a lot of, I guess, popularity, history, etc. within Australia and plays into that kind of bitters and soda type occasion and profile. And so we're really excited about SEASN coming to Australia because you've got such a wonderful food and drink scene. You've got fantastic cocktail bars, some of the most amazing chefs, and really places like Melbourne that are so foodie and food-led. Our target initially has been, we're served now in amazing cocktails in some of, about 100 of the UK's best bars, Michelin star restaurant. Like we've had a really amazing start and we want to kind of, build on that success by going city to city. We're going to New York in June. We're looking at Singapore, Hong Kong, places like San Francisco, Melbourne, like real kind of food capitals is, I think, where our sweet spot is.
Is there a particular, I'm trying to work out the sales strategy that you're taking on there. You're aiming to get into the top restaurants, bars that stock bitters, that obviously understand bitters to begin with. Is there something else that you're doing in there? I'm wondering as well what the plan is.
Yeah, it's pretty simple in the sense that apart from, cocktail bitters, biggest market is the US. And the US is an amazing opportunity because people actually make cocktails at home, on a broader scale and are more familiar with cocktail bitters. So US is a big opportunity for us. And that will be a kind of two-pronged, yes, a big focus on the on-trade, bars, restaurants, hotels, but also the kind of fine food, gourmet, retail piece we're excited about. And because we're 0.0, being able to sell from our website across 50 states, is very attractive as part of non-alc. And, Seedlip's on fire in the US. The category is in tremendous growth and momentum out there. So, it feels like that's a really exciting opportunity for us. In other markets, and I'm talking the Londons and Singapore's and Melbourne's, our focus is predominantly on the on-trade. And in getting SEASN into amazing alcoholic and non-alcoholic cocktails for people to try, and having some specialist kind of retail there. That's our focus. The consumer piece kind of not comes second, but does, we want to build this in the on-trade.
Yeah, it's interesting. And before we started recording, you mentioned Aaron from Aaron Trotman. It actually sounds quite similar to what Non's doing. I just can see some parallels. So, and for listeners, it's a great episode with Aaron too. I want to ask you though, Ben, you mentioned there that SEASN is one of a series of businesses or projects that you're going to be rolling out. What else is in the pipeline?
We set up this company called Pollen Projects, and we kind of define ourselves as a venture studio for non-alc. And what I mean by that is we are creating a portfolio of different projects, different brands over the course of the next few years. Not loads, but a handful. We're not kind of an incubator or an accelerator. We're not bringing in other people's brands, but we're building an infrastructure with a very diverse array of non-alc projects in product and branded, so different brands in non-competitive kind of spaces with the efficiencies and the synergies in the back end from a suppliers, team, distributors, etc. To kind of tackle multiple opportunities over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, born out of ideas of mine and liquids and playing around that have been really over the last 10 years. So part of this is a way of structuring a portfolio that means we're not kind of setting up one company and doing that, and then setting up another company and doing that, and setting up another company and doing that. And so, we've got 2 projects that we're going to launch over the next sort of 18 months. I can't tell you what they are yet, but I can tell you the second project is going to be made and produced here in our laboratory in the UK. And we're going to own that element of the production process. And people are, there's going to be a lot of kind of radical transparency with that. We want to spearhead and kind of be a beacon for an area of non-alc that we think has maybe not done itself justice or even scratched the surface of realizing its potential from a liquid and a brand perspective. So really excited. And that project began in my brain 15 years ago. So I can be very patient at times waiting for we want to wait for the right time to do these things and do them in the right way, rather than just sort of bash things out or put loads. SEASN only has 2 products. Seedlip has been going 9 years and only has 4 products. And the second project initially is only going to have 1 product. So we're kind of restrained. I think we always want to try and we want to keep in tune with the trade and with the consumer and with the shelf space and with back bar space and the menu space, and not kind of overload the consumer, not try and manage a really complicated portfolio of loads of different products. But do things at the right time for the right reason.
What are you learning about or exploring at the moment, Ben? I'm trying to understand where you're pushing things forward, where you're innovating, or where the conversation needs to move is essentially what I'm asking.
That is such a good question. I really love how you phrase that. Let me try and do the question justice with the answer. So I'm interested in a couple of things. I'm continually interested in the future of socializing, and not the future of the non-alc category, actually, because the future of the non-alc category is a byproduct, in my view, of something much bigger, and that's how we socialize and how we get together. And I'm 41, so the younger generation socialize very differently to how my generation socializes and my parents' generation, for example. We don't just have the pub and the club anymore. In the UK, we have over 40,000 coffee shops, and I know there's an incredible coffee scene, obviously, in Australia. And we've got a younger generation that it's normal for them to socialize online and not in real life. And that's, people can think what they think about that and that's sad, etc. But that's something that I'm thinking about, kind of the role of drinks and socializing going forwards. Not that I have all the answers to that, or I necessarily have, the predictions, etc. But I am very interested in that, and I continually think about that. That's one area. The second area connected to that is, for the last 10 years, non-alc has, really had one priority, and that's been education. It's needed credibility and to establish itself, but ultimately it's been a huge education job, and that education job hasn't stopped, and we're still very much at the beginning. But I am hopeful and excited about something really, really simple, and that is a product descriptor like the alcohol content being able to be moved to just the back of pack and just to have equal importance as the fact that, SEASN's vegan and it's 0.0. To me, those two things, and Seedlip 0.0 and it's vegan, I mean, those things to me now are just of equal importance, rather than it being all about a brand or a product defined by its ABV. Alcohol doesn't define itself by its ABV. I don't see why, and I want us to move to a place where we're talking about great drinks and great liquids and great flavor and great craft and great cocktails and great menus and great times. And we can move sort of post ABV and beyond ABV and beyond that kind of descriptor. It's there. It needs to be there. People want that transparency. They want to understand what they're putting in their body and what they're drinking. But I want this category to kind of start to move beyond this very simple, simplistic, literal definition of what's the alcohol content. And so that's something that I'm thinking about. And then the third thing I'm thinking about is, I was diagnosed autistic and ADHD. I don't know what it's like in Australia, James, but, in the UK, I was totally shocked and amazed that we have 10-year waiting lists for assessment through our public health service. We have loads of stigma, exclusion, stereotype, myths. And I was really ignorant of all of that. And I'm talking, autism, ADHD, dyslexia, Tourette's, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, words I'd never even heard of previous to my assessment. And so I've been amazed because I want to do something about it. And I want to change the narrative. I want to change society's perspective. I want to change what we think about how we think. We launched a charity in January this year that's media-led and modern and aimed at social change and aimed at campaigning and awareness and aimed at the majority of people, the 80% of people who are not neurodivergent, at shifting the public's mindset, because I'm not broken and I'm not deficient and I'm not disordered and I'm not dysfunctional. I am different and my brain works differently. And that, when you look at the course of history and you look at the contributions to our daily lives that we don't even realize and take totally for granted. And I'm talking Thomas Edison and the light bulb, and I'm talking Mozart and Isaac Newton and Einstein and Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Marilyn Monroe and Muhammad Ali and Elvis. I could go on and on and on. All of these people thought differently, and all of these people were neurodivergent. And yet we have a global view, a universal view, I guess, at a very broad brushstroke, simplistic level, that if you are neurodivergent, there's something wrong with you and that you are less capable. And so I want to change that. And I'm doing that by, we've had some amazing kind of pro bono support of huge billboards all over the UK, and our podcast, The Hidden 20%, we're nearly coming to the end of series 1. We're 10 weeks in. We've spent absolutely nothing on advertising it. We've had 600,000 episode views on YouTube, 50,000 downloads, on kind of 10 episodes or so on Apple and Spotify, and over 7 million views on social. And the response that we've had from the public has been genuinely overwhelming. But, and this is where it gets specific, I've actually been really amazed at how many people from our industry have reached out to me separately and have shared their stories. And so I'm kind of right at the beginning of I don't think neurodiversity is talked about within hospitality, and I don't think it's talked about enough. But I have this sneaky suspicion that, we're an industry that's full of incredibly talented, passionate, creative people. And my sneaky suspicion is that there are a lot of people in our industry that are neurodivergent, that are maybe undiagnosed or self-diagnosed or diagnosed, and yet are in the shadows and are in silence. And, in the UK, 8 out of 10 employees in the UK who are neurodivergent do not want to share that with their employers or their colleagues. And I find that really sad. And we want to do something about that. And so I think there's incredible diversity within our industry. And there's been incredible strides made around diversity, race, gender, sexuality, all of that kind of whole spectrum. But I want us to do more. Yeah, I want us to start having the conversation around neurodivergence and that great minds actually think differently, and that's okay, and that neurodivergence is better for business and better for creativity and can be a real skill and asset within people's businesses if understood and kind of supported. So they're the 3 things I'm whirring around in my brain, James.
All amazing and large. Very, very large undertakings. They're big, no small feat to achieve any of them. But you act with purpose in anything that you decide to build. So it's inspiring to hear that you're working towards those things as well. Just to focus on one of them, I don't have data to back it, but I'd say that your hunch, your suspicion of many people in the hospitality industry being neurodivergent, I would say that is true. That's also my guess. Yeah, I certainly feel that that's the case. I'd probably say it's a lot more than 20% in hospitality, I'd say.
It's great. You're in Australia, James, and you're in the hospitality industry. So it's a big thing for me to hear you kind of, I guess, confirm the suspicions. What's your sense, though, of neurodivergence and hospitality? Like, your finger on your pulse within the industry over there. Is the conversation being had? Have you come across it? What's your experience been?
No, generally. There are, of course, people talking about it, but I haven't seen it done en masse, at a scale that it sounds like that you're pushing for, which is amazing. I'm certainly neurodivergent. I've not been diagnosed with something in particular, but I've got my own things that I deal with that listeners to the show wouldn't have heard these things before unless they know me. But it's certainly the case that a lot of people find themselves in the hospitality industry because it's a comfortable place for misfits, to be honest with you.
Yep.
A lot of people find themselves in hospitality because they don't fit elsewhere. And I hope that I don't offend anyone by saying that. I would consider myself a misfit in many ways. And I found hospitality was comfortable for me because you have the freedom and flexibility to kind of express your individuality and engage and entertain with products that, if you like the brand or you like even just the drink or the name of the drink or the history of the drink or the food or the process involved or the design of the bar or all sorts of things. Bar, restaurant, cafe, we don't have to be talking about alcohol. We're talking about, like I said, a restaurant, or we can talk about a cafe or the coffee, learn about the history of the coffee or why it's cupped that way and the, extraction times. And there are so many ways for people who are fascinated in all sorts of different things. I could go on for years talking about these things, and I do on the show, asking people about all sorts of these things, right? But I definitely think that that's true, that people don't discuss neurodivergence enough. Yeah, people certainly don't discuss it enough.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Of course, no problem. Yeah, it links in with more of a movement in public discussion of mental health, which I think is very, very good to be discussing as well.
Yeah, and the irony, James, on that is that because so many people have not been diagnosed or been misdiagnosed, you could only diagnose ADHD in an adult from 2008, right?
And on that, you actually have to have expressed, like you have to have someone who can confirm that they've had these behaviors as a child.
Correct.
Like you still actually have to be able to link that back to them being a child. So if you don't know anyone who knew you as a child, or someone who, I can't remember what they were like as a child. I mean, it gets very grey there as well. Like it's a very difficult thing to try to navigate.
It is. And, I did a kind of 12-week assessment process that was everything from school reports to childhood behaviors, etc. So kind of very, very detailed. It's not just, hey, answer 10 questions on an online quiz, but there is a lot of self-diagnosis going on because people are having to wait so many years, for example, in the UK, for their assessments. And so I think TikTok is something like 7 to 10 billion views for content around neurodivergence. Like there's a lot on Instagram, there's a lot on TikTok. Some of it's amazing, some of it's, misinformation and dangerous. But yeah, it's a real new frontier for us to learn about, and learning the world of having a digital product rather than physical bottles of liquid. We record a show and we can be listened to and watched in pretty much every country in the world. And that on the same day. It takes a long time to develop liquids and create packaging and export and put things on boats and change labels and make sure the legals are right and nutritional information, et cetera, et cetera. Like it's not, you can't just launch a product, a physical product in a new market next week, any day you want. Whereas the reach and opportunity that media gives us with a digital product is mind-blowing to me, because my 10-year experience has been a physical thing. And I think that when you put that under the lens of social change and awareness and reach, and you look at, all of the amazing kind of examples of, whether it's Pride or Black Lives Matter or the Solidarity movement, there are amazing examples where modern media absolutely catapults these movements forward on levels and to audiences that just are incredible. It means change can happen quicker and faster and on a much bigger scale. And that's massively exciting.
Possibly in that same vein, I'd like to ask you what you're experiencing friction with at the moment.
My 2-year-old getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Every single person with a young family says their child every single time. And I don't know if it's a warning to those out there who don't have children yet, but I take it on board. So thanks for letting me know, Ben.
I've got 3 girls, James, and they're 11 and under, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And they're wonderful, and they're actually the most wonderful break and balancer. I could work all day, every day, 365 days of the year, right? The job's never done, and there's always more I want to do, and there's always more on the to-do list. But having children is a real breaker of that and a balancer, and I think that's healthy. Friction work-wise, I guess with SEASN, we're only a few months in. And so the friction I'm finding is I can be really impatient, and I can see we sort of already very quickly and very early proven that SEASN has a really amazing response and opportunity with the trade and with the top of the trade and the best bars and the best restaurants and the best hotels and the best chefs and the best bartenders. And that's really amazing. And so, but I take that and then I can see the blueprint of what to do with that. And I can see where that can go. And I can see that what we've learned in London already, we can replicate in 25 incredible cities around the world. And so the friction that I'm up against is my impatience around that. And I didn't have that with Seedlip because I didn't know anything. I had no idea what I was doing. And not that I know SEASN's very different to Seedlip, but I was very naive and I was sort of in the bliss of kind of build the plane while we're flying it. Holy shit, everything was a bonus. Everything was absolutely incredible. And not that it's not absolutely incredible with SEASN, because it is. We've created something and the response has been brilliant. And so that's wonderful. It's probably more kind of, I know a little bit more this time about what to do. Therefore, ironically, with frustration and impatience.
You said something there, and it's kind of the theme of the answer is that it's about having that impatience. But then in an earlier answer, you said that you had this idea, something in the future for your project pipeline that you're going to be rolling out. An idea that you had long ago that you haven't yet worked on that's coming. So on one hand, you're saying you're impatient, and on the other, you're saying you're patient. And I recognize that in some ways we all are patient and impatient. But could you flesh that out a little more around how you prioritize what it is that you're focusing your attention on?
Yeah, and I don't have a simple answer on that, James, but I do know that I'm operating on, it's kind of like I'm operating on, I work across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects, right? Excluding, family and my personal life. So I've got 5 projects. They're all like different cars. They're all like different vehicles. They've all got different speeds and they're all on different kind of frequencies and wavelengths. And sorry, that sounds incredibly like ethereal and abstract.
We often get ethereal and abstract with guests that like to get ethereal and abstract. So esoteric is a word I often use to describe that sort of vein. But please continue.
Nice word. What I don't do is I don't go, it's Tuesday today and that is my SEASN day. And Thursdays are my Seedlip day. That's not how I work. I dance between all of the projects on a daily basis. And the most important thing for me is literally going, what's the biggest priority on that one? And therefore, that's what I need to focus on. And I have to I dive in, I work in sprints, I step out, I kind of have to bring myself back out. I have to try and remain focused if you can do that across 5 projects. But yeah, it's a constant balancing act. And it's a constant dive in and step back. And the stepping back and the reset is really, really important. And this week, for example, is quite a reset week. I'm not in London at all this week. I'm not traveling anywhere this week. And so it gives me a really good opportunity to, have that step back. I'm not racing around. It means I can give real attention and focus to what's really needed on the projects. I'm a big believer in, and I've learned this the hard way, that I can't do everything on my own and I'm not the best person to do everything. And so building capacity in my personal life and in my professional life, if I want to create these things, if I want to create new stuff and I want to make things happen, I've got an amazing team of people that I work with that make that possible, because I'm really not interested in just ideas and just words on a paper. I'm interested in them being executed and them being made real. And what I don't want to do is I do not want to let my ideas down. And some ideas are dreadful, right? So that's fine. But the ones that stick, and the one I was saying, our second project that's been 15 years in my brain, I really don't want to let that one down, and we won't. But building our own production unit, and we've just hired Jack, who's our head of R&D. That's building capacity. That's giving these opportunities and these ideas the best chance of success. If it's all down to me, then there's a problem, because it won't happen and I will let them down. So I'm a big fan of kind of knowing or trying to understand when I'm really useful, where I'm most useful, what are the things that I can do that make the biggest impact, and how do we build capacity and whether that's software or that's resource or, it's all about optimization. So everything is always changing. Everything's always evolving. And I think, we don't stand still. And so whilst I love repetition and I love structure and I love routine, I also like to dance with changing things up and evolving things and moving things on and making them better. Yeah, it's constant wrestle, but I love the gray area. So I'm happily uncomfortable in that grey zone.
Ben, I've got it's the penultimate question of the show. Before I close it out with the final one, I'd like to ask you, and I'm wondering now, knowing that you are very detail-oriented, I'm interested to hear your answer for this one. So what's something specific that is incredibly important to you that the people that you serve, your customers, clients, the people that you deal with, aren't likely to recognize or know about, possibly even understand or appreciate? Something that you believe is valuable that is often overlooked.
I've got so many of these examples, James, actually, because it's everything from like my ancestors' initials. We've been farming 300 years as a family. That's 9 generations. I hid my ancestors' initials within the fox illustration on Seedlip spice, for example. SEASN, I did count the number of words on the label of Angostura, which is 803, in case anyone wondered.
I actually did. I did want to know after you said, Ben. Please tell me more.
We're trying to modernize cocktail bitters. We want to simplify and kind of, focus and make it really simple. And so I'm just showing the front of the bottle on the video, James, but you can see there's not a lot of words on the front label. And there's also some legals and nutritionals and things we have to have. But we've tried to make it really simple and focused and clear and direct. Yeah, a lot less words and numbers all over our pack than Angostura does.
Ben, the last question for you on the show today is, who would you like to hear on the program?
Well, you've already had him because
I know, thought, you said Aaron. Well, his episode hasn't come out yet at the time of us recording this, so I'm going to accept that answer. That's totally fine. Let's go with that. You didn't know he'd been on. His episode is coming out soon, so I hope that you enjoy listening to it.
I love Aaron and I love what the guys are doing at Non. And the wine space in non-alc is actually very tricky, and it's very tricky for two really big reasons. One, at a global level, wine is struggling as a category and as an industry, and that's for lots of different reasons, not just because people are drinking other things, but everything from raw materials, the environment, weather, etc., harvest, yields, inflation, etc. There's loads of different reasons. But connected to that is the second reason why it's really difficult, is because it's, apart from champagne, it's not a traditionally brand-led category and space. It's not like spirits. It's not like beer. That becomes an amazing challenge for people entering this sort of wine alternative kind of space. And so I'm a big fan of what Non are doing. They are kind of very much in that first principles thinking, which is how we make drinks, of kind of breaking things down and building them back up and not just taking things out and kind of creating less than or de-alcoholized products. So I'm really chuffed that you got the opportunity to speak to Aaron, because he would be my pick.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Ben. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on, to have a chat about a whole range of different things. And I very much appreciate your time. So thank you.
Thanks, James.
This program was produced by H Media. We'll see you soon.